If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
Hello and welcome to another episode of What's Bugging You. I'm your host, Chesley Elkins. Here's my co-host.
Hi, I'm Brian Victor, and we're excited to be here with the special guest again today. Before we get to that, we want to hear a word from our sponsors.
Preventive Pest Control. Taking care of the pests you see and the ones you don't see. Preventive Pest Control. It's as simple as that.
We are here joined with us again, Mr. Mike Swanson.
Yeah, lucky 7.
This is your 7th time?
This is number 7. Yeah, I've been getting pretty excited about this.
We got to find a new expert, I guess.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Well, Mike, what brings you here today? What do you want to talk about?
We've got a few things to talk about today, I think. We can... I've been watching a lot of movies lately, and there's a lot of bug movies out there. I think that might be fun to talk about. We've also got some people mistaking a lot of like dangerous bugs for super common bugs. I thought that'd be a good thing to talk about too.
Or vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about people that mistake good movies for bad movies or bad movies for good movies?
Well, that's always going to be the case. Yeah.
Well, why don't you start off with your favorite bug movie?
I would have to say Men in Black. When old Vincent D'Onofrio is made out of bugs, I think that's pretty fun. Like all the cockroaches coming in and out of his mouth.
I like you mentioned that because I didn't even think of that as a bug movie, but now you mentioned the cockroaches.
Yeah. We should say movies that have prominent scenes with bugs, if not a bug-themed movie. I think we can make that distinction. Yeah. What do you think?
Sure, works for me.
No, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I'll have to take a pause on that one.
Wasn't there like a movie from like the 50s or something that had some life-size ants in it that are attacking the earth? I'm trying to remember what was the name of that movie.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I remember from a young age like being terrified of that, and then I had like a science teacher or something when I was in elementary school talk about how insects have like it could never happen because of their body weight to like, kind of not skeleton, the exoskeleton form versus body weight. Like if they got that big, they would collapse under their own weight anyway.
Well, what's funny is I distinctly remember reading in encyclopedias when I was a kid that, reading about bugs, and it said if an ant were the size of a human or a grasshopper were the size of a human, they could jump the length of a football field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or it could lift up 10 cars.
I guess as growing up is realizing that actually wasn't true.
Well, not yet. It's a brave new world.
Oh, okay.
Technologies are advancing at an extraordinary rate. Who knows what cloning crazy insects will have.
Okay, I guess Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right?
Oh, that's a good
one.
one.
They had the ant. They were trying to get it to take them home.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah. An ant rodeo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would be afraid of getting bit. Wow. Those giant pinchers ripping you in half.
When I was a kid, there was an old black and white movie. I think it's a Fly, where I can't remember, they were like trying to do some teleport some guy. I can't remember the whole thing, but the guy in a fly was in the machine.
Yeah, they did a remake of that with, what's his name? The guy from Jeff Goldblum. And that was kind of one of his first early roles. And that was kind of a gross movie.
Does Spider-Man count?
Why not?
Of course. Spider, right?
Of course it does.
My kids would probably say Spider-Man.
Which is the best Spider-Man?
I've never seen any of them, so I couldn't tell you.
I would say, I think that Tom Holland is pretty good.
My kids like the one that combines them all. What is it?
Spider-Verse or something.
Spider-Verse or something.
Yeah,
Multiverse.
The multiverse one.
Can't remember exactly.
I have like a little because my kids watch all the time, and I'm always like in and out of the house, and I don't know, so I know kind of what's going on, but never actually sit down and watch one.
So speaking of The Fly, it's also the name of a pretty controversial episode of Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah.
Which one was that?
Yeah, it's
a fly's perspective, right?
Yeah, there's a single fly in the movie that he's trying to kill during the whole episode.
I got to finish that series. I'm going to lose my New Mexican card.
And it's a very different episode from any of the others. It's a very I believe there was a guest director on it on that one. It's just it kind of throws the it's almost like a break from the series, just right in the middle of it with probably some deep meaning, I'm sure.
Like, was it Werner Herzog's episode of Breaking Bad?
Something like that. I saw in the top 10 list, there was a couple of them that I remember late 90s, the Ants and A Bug's Life, that were basically the same movie, a couple of things, but one was, Woody Allen.
Yeah.
So.
Then you had Seinfeld, right? The B movie?
I think that was the greatest travesty, was the bee movie.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're like anthropomorphizing to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. Like, they all have jobs, but the fact that the male bees were as important as the female bees, come on. The male bees don't do anything in the hive except for provide, genetics.
Yeah, I guess that would have made Jerry Seinfeld a little bit irrelevant, right?
Yeah, well, one of many things these days.
And then I guess we probably got pretty deep on this, but arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia.
I remember as a kid, I was at drive-in theaters. Used to be drive-in theater right over here in Albuquerque. And I was watching other screens that I wasn't supposed to watch. There were supposed to be scary movies, and I saw this arachnophobia. I was a little kid, and my mom was like, "Don't watch that screen; you're gonna get nightmares."
Was she right?
Probably. I remember. I would always try to look for other whatever we weren't watching. I try to watch other.
I've seen that movie many times. That was the VHS favorite growing up. I think that was pretty good. Yeah.
Then your favorite movie, Starship Troopers, huh?
Yeah, I'm a Verhoeven fanboy. I love the Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
So I've never seen Starship Troopers. It's a
sci-fi movie where it's like way in the future, and there's a race of like giant bugs. Essentially, they're aliens. They call them bugs, but they're not really.
Okay.
And they essentially have to go after them and kill them, and it's like this big interplanetary war with the bugs, but it's also like a satire on social aspects and politics too. It's pretty good.
I just remember it has Denise Richards in it,
Yes, it does.
but I don't remember anything else.
Yeah.
I just remember it's not
Rico's Roughnecks.
Yeah, that's right.
Hooah!
Yeah, we have our office manager named Rigo. That's right. And that's why people always say Rigo's Roughnecks.
That's where it comes from.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
See, I learned something today.
And Doogie Howser plays a general, and he's actually kind of disturbing.
That's Albuquerque boy. Neil
there you
Patrick
go.
Harris right there, right?
So
Cycling back.
my personal all-time favorite bug-themed movie, Charlotte's Web.
Oh,
That's sad.
Well, it's very heartfelt.
that's a sweet one. That's actually good for you. That's actually a nice.
So we have a hot air
bring back.
balloon with spiders on the side of it, and we had everyone vote for the name of the balloon, and that was like probably the second most votes was Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah.
But it's Itsy Bitsy is the name of the balloon, but Charlotte was the
Well, it makes sense because there's two
Second place.
spiders on Itsy Bitsy, so it has kind of that duality.
yeah. So Mike, tell us a little bit about you're talking about some bugs that might mimic other bugs.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of
or
questions about this lately.
Get confused for other bugs.
Yeah, so the first thing I would think about is probably we get so many, especially as it gets warmer, we get all these calls about fleas, right? And also as it gets warmer, we get a lot of calls about these little things people think are fleas coming inside the house, and they're springtails. And so if you are the listeners, if you haven't seen these, I highly recommend you just Google the picture, and you can kind of see the difference. Well, the first thing is springtails have antennae and fleas don't. And springtails are tiny little insects. They're not microscopic. You can see them just like fleas. But they live outside. They're super, super common. They're in the ground, eating like decaying organic material, stuff like that. But if there's a lot of moisture near the house, they'll come inside just, arbitrarily. And when they get frightened, they jump. They have this little structure that's folded up underneath their belly, and when they get scared, that gets released, and they fly up into the air. And people think it's like
a flea.
A flea that's jumping, right? And so fleas are they're very, very distant. They're not related at all. And fleas are blood-sucking, parasites that we interact with because they get on wildlife and they get on our pets and that sort of thing. And those can be dangerous, right? Because they're diseases that are transmitted by the fleas, like bubonic plague, which we do get here in New Mexico from rabbits and squirrels and things like that. So that's a big one.
This time of year, we're going to start seeing a lot of springtails. Just for people start watering their grass and the mulch and everything around. They're all over the place. So
yeah, watering, and especially when the monsoon starts, where you get rain, and there's things like welcome mats and things that are provide shelter right up against the door that they can kind of start multiplying under.
Yeah, I'd say probably well over 90% of the time that somebody here in this area thinks that they have fleas, they're usually dealing with springtails.
I would say at least, yeah. At least 90%, yeah.
Being nice there.
Yeah, I bet that's like the number one mistake we get. And then what else? People always ask how you can tell the difference between a millipede and a spider. And so, what do you think? What would you tell them?
Millipede and a spider?
Millipede and a centipede.
Millipede and a centipede? Well, I know the answer to that one. But,
Lay it on me.
well, one pair of legs per segment versus 2, right?
Yep,
Per
that's the
segment,
big thing. Yep.
So it's not 100 legs versus 1,000 legs.
It would be nice if that was the case, but it's not.
My
So
Latin's
millipedes
failing me.
I've seen some big millipedes. They might have close to.
There was, up until 2021, there were no known species of millipedes that had 1,000 legs, but since then we found some that have in excess of 1,000 legs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen on the west side. I've seen millipedes as far as like little, little inch long. Like they'll have thousands of them on their driveway to huge, big, thick looking suckers, right? So.
And there's so many misnomers. I remember as a kid in Albuquerque, and you'd see them like digging around the front yard or something. You'd see them like in a sprinkler box. And I had a babysitter once. I remember when I was a little kid saying, "Don't touch those. If you touch them, they'll kill you." And just
You chop it in half, it's going to grow another head. That was a centipede, right?
A hydra millipede.
Yeah.
But centipedes, of course, do have a stinger, and they have a painful sting.
And they're nasty.
Venom.
looking.
It's a bite.
And we do have plenty of them around here, unlike fleas. There are plenty of centipedes.
There's
Yeah.
millipedes and millipedes here.
Centipede, we
Yeah.
get both. right?
Yeah, and especially again with the monsoons coming out is when the centipedes get really active,
Yep.
and we start seeing them in people's houses. And I mean, you can treat for them, right? I mean, it's not like they are kind of just like a spider or scorpion. You want to keep it out of your house, but
Sure.
you can certainly do a treatment for it. Pest control company can do a pretty extensive barrier and keep them out for sure.
Yeah, they usually don't want to be in your house. Usually just kind of end up there because they're hunting other little bugs or whatever, trying to eat, maybe springtails even, and they just kind of end up in your house sometimes. And they're usually out of the way until someone lifts something up, lifts like a box up or something, because they're usually kind of nocturnal, I think, for the most part. Or
Yeah, most of these you see the ones that are active hunters. Usually you see them at night more.
Yeah. Well, I know the next one on the list because we've been doing this misidentification for years is the brown recluse spider.
Yeah,
Pretty much any
thousands
spider,
of bites a year now.
Every ER doctor says everything is a brown recluse bite.
Have you ever seen one in New Mexico?
No, not in New Mexico. I haven't
I
seen
have not
one
either.
here.
I haven't either.
Between us, we have 60 years of experience and
least,
never
yeah.
seen.
Yeah, we get a lot of false calls for them though.
Well, I know a lot of people are taught to identify them based on the back looking like a fiddle, and when a spider's kind of staring you down or looking there, you can see a lot of things in there, and you're probably going to see worst case scenario, and you're going to see those patterns emerge whether they're there or not. So we know that they have a certain eye cluster that's actually that we can identify them by and differentiate from the other spiders that are relatively harmless, right? But
Yeah, the six eyes is the real big indicator for the recluse.
Right.
Well, a big indicator too is the violin, the fiddle in the back, and there's other spiders that have like wisp spiders, some grass spiders. So people confuse them. They kind of look, have the violin look thing on the marking on the back, but it's not a brown recluse. So
Yeah, the one I get the most from like the commercial clients that are really worried about it are actually the southern house spider. We get a lot of those here in central New Mexico, and those look a lot like a brown recluse. If you've seen a picture of brown recluse, you would instantly think of that. And they do have like a dark brown line that goes down the back of their cephalothorax from the eyes, and it looks a lot like a violin, especially if you're just taking a glance at it. The color's the same, they're the same kind of slenderness, but the house spider is much bigger.
Well, I think a double whammy too with the brown recluse. A lot of times people will self-identify that they've been bitten by a brown recluse when they've got something completely different going on. It could be like an infection or like staph infection or something else, some other
MRSA.
skin lesion. Exactly,
Yeah.
MRSA. But they've seen or heard of brown recluse bites, and they see something weird going on with their skin and assume that's what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, and that's not to say that it's impossible to find a brown recluse.
Yeah,
around
they can hitchhike in,
Yeah.
in certain conditions. They might even be able to hang around for a while.
Yeah, and in the last 10 years with climate change, we've seen a visible change in the kind of the different variety of insects that we have commonly in Albuquerque now, right? Even the last 5 years. So who knows what's going to happen?
Just never say never.
Exactly.
So I guess moving on to some flying bugs, we get these are a little harder to distinguish. I think the paper wasp and the yellow jacket. And what would you say is what do we look for in differences in those?
one's an a-hole, one's not.
One,
Excuse me.
one's mildly irritating and one's a raging jerk. Yeah. So Paper wasps, they're all over town, and they have relatively smaller colonies. They don't hide their hives like the hives you can see readily hanging down front and underneath your shed, or like the eaves of homes are super common places to find them. And their colony size is, you can call it a colony. The hive size is pretty small, and rarely more than like 30 individuals, usually less. And the wasps themselves are very long and kind of like they have a real thin waist that's very obvious. And they're it was relative to like a honeybee or a yellow jacket. They're really kind of long and slender, and they will sting people certainly if they feel like they're trying to defend their hive or defend themselves. But it's not as common to get stung. But yellow jackets will just sting you, because I don't know, somebody's playing John Mayer at this house next door, maybe because it's Tuesday. They don't care. They just sting. And they're smaller. They look more like a honeybee in terms of like their size. They're more compact, and they're really bright yellow and black color. But in the hives, you won't find the hive. The hives are always going to be hidden, at least in the New Mexico area, right? They're always going to be underground or in a wall or under a shrub, things like that. I've found them under sheds, shipping containers. But yeah, they're never out in the open, whereas the paper wasps are always out in the open.
Yeah, I find it interesting. The yellow jack's fairly carnivorous too, though. They love raw meat.
Yeah, some term for them I've seen is meat bee, which I don't know, it sounds gross.
Hey, I guess that's what we are to them, big chunk of meat.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, like yellow jackets to me is like if you're having a picnic with your family, that's a yellow jacket.
Yeah.
They're the ones out there hovering around the ground, below the ground, trying to get our soda can or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they'll tell you. It's happened to me. I was at El Pinto on the patio, and one came down and took a piece of chicken out of my enchilada and flew away. You just kind of that's the yellow jacket task,
Well, in fact, we used to long time ago. We used to have these pheromone traps for yellow jackets, and I think we got rid of pheromones. We started like lunch meat in them, right? To get the yellow jacket, and that's what the lunch meat is what we would trap them. So.
Yeah, it does. And the adults don't. I don't think that they eat meat. They are more like like bees. They're going after nectar and tree sap and stuff like that, where they will regurgitate the chewed up insects or chicken enchilada or whatever, and that's for the larva.
Okay.
So I have another maybe I could be mistaken here, but we have a would you rather question here, and in that question, one of the bugs in that would you rather, isn't that commonly it's the kissing bug? Isn't that sometimes mistaken for another bug here in New Mexico?
Yeah, and I'm not aware if we have any kissing bugs. That's a relative to like the assassin bug, distant relative to like the brown marmorated stink bug, and actually bed bugs.
So that's
we're all in the same.
We have
order.
that here, right? The marmorated stink bug.
Just now, barely. Yeah, we are now in New Mexico getting confirmed cases, which stinks. No pun intended. That it sucks that we have those bugs because they are, they destroy ecosystems, and they just get in the way. They stink. They're getting in people's yards, but at least we don't have the spotted lantern bugs, where those are even worse.
What is that?
They're all over the East Coast. It's an invasive species from China that they just defoliate, bushes and trees at a dramatic rate.
Too bad we can't get any fireflies up here.
We do have some.
I've seen some up in the mountains. I haven't seen any here in Albuquerque.
I've seen some up in the hot springs in Jemez.
Yeah. Yeah, they're neat. When you go back east in the summer, you see them. They're neat to watch.
Yeah, kissing bugs. You see those more down in like Central America, up into Mexico, but I'm not aware of it being a big thing here in New Mexico yet.
Well, let me give you a would you rather then.
All right,
lay it on me.
Lay it on.
All right, here's the scene. We're setting up the scene here. It says you were camping up near the Sandia Mountains. I don't know why you'd camp there. I'd rather go to the Jemez or something. But anyways,
make it the Jemez.
Jemez Mountains. This night, the desert is quiet. Then the bugs show up. You must choose between two pretty interesting scenarios to sleep for the night. One, option A, spend the night in a cabin with 150 kissing bugs who are attracted to CO2, kind of like bed bugs, right? And so when you breathe, whatever you're breathing off, they're going to be attracted to you. So you head for your face. That's why I call them the kissing bugs, right? And you risk Chagas disease, and you cannot kill the bugs. That's what I say. I'll just kill those suckers. But I guess. And option B is sleep outdoors in a sleeping bag with 3 bark scorpions guaranteed to crawl on you. They may sting you or not. You must remain still. Pain from stings can last days. I don't know.
I think the answer's obvious for me. What do you think?
Well, the warm cabin seems nice.
Well, there's that.
Well, if you're the second option is saying sleep. I think of the first option, if it's just spend the night and doesn't you don't necessarily have to sleep. I feel like I could probably keep them away from my face.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, brew some coffee and just keep doing this all night long. But here's the two other things, what we know about these bugs, right? So the Chagas is it's a disease that they carry on, just like a mosquito carries malaria. There has to be some other host from which the assassin bug or the kissing bug gets, picks up the parasite or the virus, whatever, and then it then bites you, and then that's how it gets passed on. Well, if we're in the Jemez, it's not like there's a big reservoir of Chagas disease for these bugs to get it from them. So if they already had the Chagas disease in them, then that would be different. I don't know. I'd take the kissing bugs, absolutely.
It's a cabin one. Too. It's it's bugs. Scorpions could kill you. Those bark scorpions aren't.
Well, I don't know.
Bark scorpions, they can.
You're relatively healthy.
Yeah.
I think it'd just make you angry.
You're judging a book. obviously not by the cover, because I don't look very healthy. But yeah. What would you rather? Would you rather get bit by a brown recluse or a black widow?
Black widow.
I think same thing. Because I think that brown recluse has like the necrotizing stuff going on, right, a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, most black widow bites are localized, like especially if you're talking about like on the arm or the hand or something. People I've seen that get kind of bad reactions from black widows either already have a predisposition or like an allergy for it, and they're going to get a harder reaction, or they've been bitten like in the abdomen or someplace where it has more of an effect. But yeah, I would take the black widow. I've known people who've been in the hand and the ear by them, and they're fine.
And if you're in relatively good health, then there's not usually a lot to worry about. Would you say you need to seek medical attention right away for the black widow bite? I
would say if you are worried about it, go to urgent care just in case.
Okay.
Or ER, whatever. Why not? That's probably good advice. Err on the side of caution.
Please hang up and call 911.
Yes.
That's what we're saying.
Err on the side of caution.
Yes, always go.
What would I do? I don't know. I'd probably make a Negroni and wait it out. I don't know.
You'd call and seek to work, I'm sure. I'm going to home.
Hey, honey, where's the Campari? I think I got a bug bite. But that's just me.
Did I miss any bugs off the list here?
Yeah, so here's one that we get a lot too is the carpet beetle. Carpet beetle, if you spend any time on Reddit or listening to people call in to pest control companies, carpet beetles are everything. Or bed bugs are everything, right? And so we say, oh, we have carpet beetles, and you get out there and it's like rice or, beans from a bean bag or something, or it is an actual bug. But carpet beetles are a common name for what we call the domestic beetles, which is a family of beetles that are all relatively small, and they're super common. They're all over the place.
You're talking the adults, obviously.
Yeah, the adults are the beetles, but the larvae are look like tiny little caterpillars, about the size of a grain of rice, if not smaller. They're really hairy. And so people freak out because they read online that the hairs from the carpet beetles can cause like irritation, like the setae is what it's called, and it gets off and gets in your skin and causes irritation. Then people start thinking, well, I'm a little irritated. I must have carpet beetles. Or they'll like see one like, on the back of a couch or something and then make the assumption that we have an infestation and, we need to call somebody. And that's when we get a lot where people will see carpet beetle larvae inside bedding, which for some reason is not that uncommon. And then they think immediately, now we have bed bugs.
Yeah, I think bed bugs, a lot of stuff gets identified as bed bugs because they'll see any kind of bug in their bed and assume they have bed bugs, and they'll call and they'll even send a picture, and we even over the picture right now, it's not a bed bug. They still want us to go out there and inspect it, and we'll go inspect it and charge you to tell you it's not a bed bug. But it's kind of like people just freak out, about that. So
yeah, twice now in the last month or two I like to go through on the Reddit, like what is it page, kind of fun, like the sleuthing, if you can figure out what people say, share a picture of something and tell me, what is this? And twice it has been pictures that I can tell is obviously the droppings from drywood termites, which is essentially like big grains of sand, really. Right. But they show up in piles in people's homes because they're getting kicked out of the wall or kicked out of the ceiling, whatever. And the most liked answer on both of those was, it's carpet beetles.
Oh,
it's
really?
definitely carpet beetles. No, it's not.
It's varied carpet
varied carpet beetles, yeah.
Well, I have heard it said before that some people that seem to be suffering from delusory parasitosis, or basically bugs are not there, that may actually be experiencing some of that irritation from the setae of the carpet beetles too.
Yeah,
And
it could
something
be.
you can't completely overlook.
Well, that's what's so hard, right, about delusory parasitosis is that there are almost invariably there's some activity of insects
Right.
inside somebody's home, but then the brain is telling itself that there are this infestation of bugs that aren't there, and so it's hard to parse, when you're having a conversation with somebody, trying to guide them to a resolution and get them some relief.
And we do have a buzzkill joke of the month.
Oh, I can't wait.
Give it to us, man.
It's pretty amazing. Why did the cockroach get kicked out of the comedy club?
Huh.
Because he kept bombing and never died.
Oh,
write-
man, that is a buzzkill.
Well,
I like it though.
We'll blame Rigo as the renegade. He gave me that joke. Rigo's what? Was it Rigo's?
It was Roughneck.
Rigo's
Rigo's
Roughnecks.
Roughnecks. They provided that joke. Yes.
Yeah, this bad joke brought to you by Rigo's Roughnecks.
Well, I think that's enough for today. We'll see you next time on What's Bugging You.
Yeah, thanks for having me.